take a little bit of money and turn it into a lot of money really fast.
This is the How to Trade Stocks and Options podcast, brought to you by 10MinuteStockTrader.com, where we cover finance, stocks, options, entrepreneurship, education, and money. And here's your host, voted one of the top 100 people in finance, Christopher Ewell. Why trade alone when you can access over 100 years of trading experience right at your fingertips? Simple strategies, proven tools, real-time alerts, and an interactive trading community await. Keep it simpler with Simpler Trading by visiting their website at simplertrading.com and check it out with a $7 trial today. That's at simplertrading.com. Hey, make sure you subscribe and hit the bell so you'll be notified every time we give you more tools, tips, and tricks to help you trade faster and trade smarter every single week. Hey there, traders. Welcome back to another edition of the How to Trade Stocks Options podcast. Today, we have a special guest online, my friend Raghee Horner. She's the Managing Director of Futures and Forex Trading at Simpler Trading. Raghee, I'm really excited to have you on today. We got a pretty interesting topic.
We do. I'm stoked to be here. Thanks so much for having me back.
Yeah, my pleasure. So before our episode aired, Raghee and I were talking, and we're going to be talking about the misunderstandings that come along with day trading. Raghee is a seasoned veteran trader. I think she's been trading 2 or 3 years, and at this point, she's got a couple experiences under her belt that will probably lend a big helping hand to you in your trading. So, Raghee, I'm gonna hand you the mic, and I want to learn from you today.
Sounds great. So yeah, 2 or 3 decades actually. So actually 32 years now. I love that. Let's stick with 2 or 3 years. I like that. It makes me feel young. You know, it's actually interesting because I started day trading back when it was called Small Order Execution System, or SOES. They used to call us SOES bandits. And what was happening back then is we had access to the inner workings of level 2 before it became widely available. And we could see the different brokers and how they would do business with each other, but pesky little people like us weren't able to do business. So that was my first taste of it. I had a buddy of mine who was a prolific SOES bandit, as they said. And I said, wait a minute, this is interesting. This isn't day trading, gambling the way we're always discouraged to do so. Commissions were very prohibitive for that kind of trading. They were very expensive. So nobody day traded. And I think day trading got a bad rap. And if you think about the very first type of trading in the history of trading, say in the US, when Wall Street was literally a field next to a giant wall, the kind of trading they did was day trading. And all that means is that at the end of the session, you go home flat. Anything else that we impose on the word day trading, strategically or risk management wise or anything like that, it really just means going home flat. And as you mentioned, we were talking before we started the podcast here. We know that right now, with the myriad of news headlines and concerns as we go into an election year, that should equate to being nimble. That should be equated to risk control, and even the freedom to know that if the narrative goes a 180 from Monday to Tuesday, Tuesday to Wednesday, we can adapt. So it's really an adaptive type of trading.
So, Raghee, when someone says day trading, I mean, you were saying it may be considered like a 4-letter word, right? There's so much, I hate to say it, but there's so much garbage, so many charlatans, so many scammers out there that want to take advantage of newer traders with the allure of day trading.
Sure.
How does somebody know like what's legit and what's not, right?
So I think there's a couple things about day trading that first really pull traders in. It's the idea of making money fast. It's the idea of working a few hours and being able to make a living. It's the idea of day trading margin that's available through some brokers. So there's a lot of things that kind of equate to the things in our business that are sort of the bane of our business, which is take a little bit of money and turn it into a lot of money really fast. Now, that's not untrue. It's not untrue in that if you have by proportion, for example, let me get a little bit more tactical here. The broker that I trade through allows me to trade a single contract of the S&P 500 for $500 day trading margin, which means from 9:30 to 4:15, I can use a very small amount of money to control a relatively large contract.
So that's, sorry to interrupt. That's the futures contract, right? You're not talking like option contracts. Okay.
Right. And by the way, I day trade options as well, because what's great about futures, what's great about options, what's even great about Forex is that margin. You need the margin in order to take a small amount of time, small amount of money and grow it. But we know the flip side of this story. We know that with great horsepower comes a great chance of slamming into the wall. And we see people do that all the time, which is to say, if I give you a very fast sports car as your very first car and you've got no idea how to handle the steering or the throttle, it's going to end badly. But you take somebody with some skill, you take someone who's gone through racing school, you take someone who's gone through defensive racing, things that my husband and I have done in past anniversaries, and you go, wait a minute, I give that person that same set of keys and give them that car, they're going to be able to do unbelievable things with it. But that means there's practice and there's study and there's classes and there's self-introspection involved. And until you go through those steps, I'm just handing you a really fast sports car waiting for you to wreck it. And I think, sadly, that's what happens to a lot of new traders.
I can tell you without a doubt that that was my story. I blew up my account twice,
Mm-hmm.
and it was absolutely from having leverage through options and having no idea how to handle that leverage, and
Mm-hmm.
then getting emotional by having all the leverage and watching it work against me
Mm-hmm.
instead of working for me.
Mm-hmm.
And I knew I was never going to stop. So I was like, I'm going to figure this out.
Mm-hmm.
There have been times where I took 6 months breaks and I'm like, I'm going to study every day until I figure this thing out. And it's such, I mean, leverage is incredible,
Mm-hmm.
but in the wrong hands, absolutely. Like you were saying, it's kind of like a drunk driver, I guess you could say, right? You
Mm-hmm.
might do well, and then you might end really badly, right? You might kill your account or
Mm-hmm.
something worse.
Uh-huh.
So yeah, I mean, I've been there, and it's fun and exciting, but without knowing I guess it really comes down to knowing yourself, right? Because trading in a nutshell is clicking buttons on a screen.
Mm-hmm.
But any monkey can do that,
Mm-hmm.
right? But
Mm-hmm.
knowing when to enter and when to exit
Mm-hmm.
and why to enter and why to exit,
Mm-hmm.
and then knowing you've got to work against yourself, your mental psychology. That's another thing too. Like the I forget who it was, but one of my guests was telling me that, in psychology there's this effect where, like, if you see a dollar on the ground, you want to pick it up. And
Mm-hmm.
it's like having open profits on your screen. You want to take those open
Mm-hmm.
profits. But if you haven't taken those profits and it's a loss, I'm just going to let it work a little bit longer until it becomes a small profit, right? And then you're stuck with what I dealt with for years, which was tiny profits, big losses.
Mm-hmm. So I think it's a great point. I mean, you brought up a lot of great points. Tiny profits, big losses. We want to flip that around. So my thought was this: if it's that easy to lose money, it must be pretty easy to make it. I just need to be on the
Mhm.
right side of that equation. So that's
Absolutely.
the first thing. I went in as an optimist. The second thing was, and this applies to anything, I don't necessarily operate with goals in mind, like daily goals or anything like that, because the market's going to yield what it's going to yield. However, it's amazing when you have clarity about what kind of trading it is that you want to do, when you have clarity on what kind of risk it is you're willing to take. It's amazing how what you want to do, just sort of the path lays out in front of you. So let me be specific. I know for me, and I appreciate the podcast name. I love the name. We were talking about that before as well. That, I did not want to spend all day in front of this rig. I mean, it's a lot to process. So I think this idea that a full-time trader just sits here all day, oh gosh, that's not, I mean, if I'm sitting here, I'm writing my newsletter, I might be writing and working on my next book, which I am, or a course, but I spend about 2.5 or 3 hours a day trading. That includes my day trading, that includes my options day trading, that includes my swing or trend following. 3 hours a day. Now, there's of course research and preparation, but the actual trading is far less than people think. I've been trading exclusively day trading as I've done almost my entire career over summer. Started in late May, around Memorial Day. I'll start to shorten my time frame and take this summer approach that I've done since the late 90s. And what I found is, especially in this environment going into an election year, my experiment kind of challenged by my members was, Rod, our average account size is X. Let's see what you can do over a period of time, 2 hours a day and about 4 days a week. So again, I'm not even trading 5 days a week. I'm trading 3, maybe 4 days a week, because certain days of the week are better than others. And these are the nuances that you learn. So, the challenge was, can you 10x an account? My partner here in the office said, let's see if you can 10x an account, but not with home runs. Not because I picked that big trade and went in with too much size where it was either risk of ruin or a huge gain. It's grinding it out every day, putting a little bit of money in your account. And that was my path. That was my clarity. I knew I wasn't going to be a home run hitter. I just want to get on base every day if possible. And if I strike out, let's not make it a disaster. And that's my approach. And that's really what I encourage people to do. Have the patience to grind it out because, in about 45 days, I did 10x that account. I love a challenge, but I did. And not with any huge risk.
Wow, that's incredible. I was going to say that that's more my style. I'm very much the single hitter and not the home run hitter.
Mm-hmm,
Um,
mm-hmm.
I'm definitely not buying calls. I'm more of the selling put spreads kind of person versus
Okay.
the buying the out of the money calls
Full
person.
income, sure.
Yeah. And
Mhm,
that just makes my life, my trading, my life so much easier, right? I'll put the
mhm,
put spread behind a certain moving average, right, for
mhm,
support. And
mhm.
then I'll just let it work. And then if it turns
Cool.
around and goes against my support level, I'm out. It might be a tiny loss at this point instead of hoping for things to turn around. But
Mhm.
that's my style, right? It's very much the singles hitting. However, I certainly haven't 10x an account in 45 days before, so I could learn a lot from you, that's for sure.
I learned a lot about some of the habits that I had developed over 30 years. And some of that is when you're doing any kind of experiment like that, the real reason for the experiment was for me to get very granular with studying which patterns and which days and which times of day and which individual symbols were yielding me my best returns. And I think a lot of people take a very sort of surface look. 10x an account, that's a surface look. It's impressive, right? But it's a surface look. What I like to do is go below that and show everyone this was the time of day. This was the average holding time. This was when I typically entered. And when you can get that granular with your P&L, not just, oh, great, I made money, that doesn't tell you anything because you might have done very, very poor habit type trading and it rewarded you, which is a very, very dangerous path to head down. But when you study the winners and the losers, but you study those tendencies, now you know what to turn the volume up on. Now you know what to stop doing. So those experiments, which I encourage everyone to do, are going to tell you a lot about your good and bad habits and what you should really be, going more all in on in terms of times of day and days of the week.
Yeah, and so going back to the topic here, right, like misunderstanding day trading, right?
Sure.
A lot of people come in or I've seen many ads on YouTube's, where I'm just waiting to skip the button, and it's like, I make 2% a day, and people love, when they can make 2% a month in the stock market. Do you realize how fast you can compound an account with 2% a day? And like you're saying earlier, not having those goals. I
Hmm.
mean, I've tried to have quote goals, and they end up causing poor, in my opinion, or in my experience, causing poor decisions because I'm like, I have to hit this goal. I have to hit my quota. If I don't hit my quota, then I have failed. And then I've made other bad decisions along the way
Hmm.
trying to hit that quota. And then next thing you know, I've definitely not hit the quota and I've
Right.
lost more than 2% kind of deal.
Yeah.
So there's a lot that goes into the day trading realm. What's really important, right? There's a lot going on out there, but really, what to you, boiling it down, right? If we're misunderstanding day trading in the norms, what is important to focus on?
Sure. So, kind of going back to just like you said, no goals. I mean, I've tried to live a no goal life now for just over a decade, and I was very goal oriented in my late teens, early 20s, and to my 30s and 40s. I realized the market's only going to give me what it's going to do on any given day. So, first of all, you have to understand volatility. Volatility is what's going to dictate what you could make, right? So, if I know the typical price movement range for the day in the Dow, for example, is something whopping like I think last time I checked, 800 points on average on the upper end. I know 800 points is going to be the fluctuation for that day, and my job is to grab little pieces of it. Let's say I think for the opening range of the Nasdaq every morning between 9 and 10 a.m., my volatility range is about gosh, it's escaping right now, but I want to say it's about 150 points. So if I'm expecting to make a certain amount of money and I'm not respecting what the historical volatility ranges are of that stock, of that ETF, or of that futures contract, and this applies to all three, that growth of my account was all three asset classes. I love to day trade options. I love to day trade futures. So if you don't start with understanding what the market's capable of doing and being very realistic of what you can extract from that expected range, you're already working with an unrealistic expectation. The other expectation is how long can you really persist in day trading? Focus and discipline is finite. A lot of folks have already written about that and proven that focus and discipline are finite. So I'm not going to push my gray matter past the point that I know I really shouldn't. This isn't about endurance. It's about really getting the best out of yourself in a certain amount of time. For some people, that's 1 hour. For other people, it's two. For me, I found I can go about 2.5 hours and really be at my best, at my optimal. So that's usually going to equate to 9:30 to 11:30 in the morning.
Mhm.
Some people like the afternoon, but again, until you can break down your trading and look at, am I a better afternoon trader or am I a better morning trader? So by studying all these for the past, give or take 20 plus years, I realized 2.5 hours in the morning, and I like to be flat, if at all possible, or with a trailing stop by noon Eastern. And those are just some of the things that I have found, and those have been some of the pieces of the puzzle that have allowed me with that kind of P&L growth.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Talking about what you can mentally handle, right?
Mhm,
I think we all go through the experience of finding that sweet spot.
mhm,
And I can remember so many times trying to be the day trader and just sitting at my computer, just staring at the
mhm.
charts for
Right.
hours. And then not even like making good choices. Staring at the charts and then making bad choices because I'm like, oh well, this indicator contradicts that indicator, so it could
Right.
work out. Um, so yeah, for me, like that's where I decided, I am absolutely more of a swing trader type of
Mhm,
person.
mhm,
I have my indicator set, and there's two times of the day when I'll go and trade. The first time is around 9:45 Central Time, so 10:45 your time. After the
mhm,
initial market gyrations, I'll
mhm,
come in, set what I want, set my stops, and take out. And then again around 2:30, so about a half hour before the market closes, I'll come
mhm,
in, do the same thing, see if there's anything that's hitting my watch list, my
mhm,
scanners, and then
mhm,
setting my stops, and I'm out. And that makes my life so much easier, right? Just having a plan,
mhm,
right? Executing
mhm.
the plan, and then getting away from the charts, getting away from the screens, and not letting that rule your life. Because literally nobody wants to be stuck in front of a screen.
Oh no.
I've talked to traders or hopeful traders who said they're like, oh, I can't wait till I can day trade all day and just sit in front of a chart. So I'm like, that sucks. What if you could do that twice a day for 10 minutes and then go out and like hang out on the beach or something else instead,
Mhm,
right? Have a better life. You could even
mhm.
work a full-time job doing this. Like
Right.
it's very simple to do when you have a set of mechanics in place.
Right.
And that sounds like some of the things that you're talking about. It really all comes down to finding what works for you and your personality and your
Mhm,
style, and
mhm.
and definitely not trying to mimic the ads that we all see on YouTube.
Sure. Sure. And it's interesting listening to you talk because I don't know if you can see it in the background, but I've got a bat on my desk. I've got an old
Oh,
unfinished
baseball
ash
bat. Yeah, I
bat
was
on
looking
my
for a
desk.
bat with wings, but I see the bat now.
So I keep that there. Well, one, I love baseball. I'm a big fan of the thinking behind something like sabermetrics and Moneyball. And the reason the bat is on there is exactly what you just described. You just described your pitch. You're a big league hitter. You just described your pitch. You're basically playing just after the initial balance ends, and you're
Mhm.
playing the last half hour of the day when we have a surge in volume, and you might have different reasons for why those are your pitches, but you've just identified your pitch, and we know that every elite big league hitter knows their pitch, and they're not going to swing at something that isn't that. And the market is the pitcher. The market is the pitcher. It's not adversarial per se. I think a lot of people make the markets much more adversarial in some ways than they need to be. The market's not out to get us. It's just a pitcher trying to throw the best pitches, and it's us trying to recognize which pitch we can hit. Study lets us find out what those pitches are. Practice and even more study allows us to be able to swing at more pitches and in a more effective way. So yeah, I love what you just said. It's why I keep a bat on my desk.
Yeah. Well, I wasn't sure if it was to fight off the Gators there in Florida.
They're harmless. They really are.
Well, Raggy, we could go ahead and start wrapping up, but really, like, what would be your one takeaway for somebody, right? They're new to trading. Maybe they've stumbled across this episode in their
Mhm,
YouTube feed or something else.
mhm.
What's one thing that they could take away and say, you know what? She's right. She's got a great point there. And I should do this going forward.
So get clear on your goals. When I started my 10x experiment, my challenge, the goal was, Rod, you can't do this all day. You've got to do it with a limited account, and you've got to use a handful of strategies. You just can't throw all your bags of tricks at it. So pick 2 or 3 strategies, 2 or 3 hours. Those were imposed kind of clarifications, but I think the idea is still the same. Find out what it is you want. I don't want to be here all day trading. I don't find that enjoyable. I love the research. I love looking at daily timeframes and putting on some of those swing trades, but I don't want to be day trading here all day. So I got very specific on my goals. I want to grow an account with a limited number of strategies, because you can't look at 40, but maybe you can look at 4. I wanted to be able to pick from symbols that I thought could move really well. That goes back to volatility and studying that. So get clear on what you want out of the market, because everyone just starts with this very all-encompassing, I want to make money. That doesn't work. How do you want to do it? And then how are you best able to do it? And I think if you can recognize those things, then you are on the right path of study, and you're not going to be distracted, and you're not going to continue to widen your study topics, but rather get very narrow and focused and specialized in what it is that your path, your chosen path, right, is going to be. And not to get all philosophical, but when you get clear, you manifest results. It's not about goal setting. When you get clear, you manifest results. And that's really been the cornerstone of my career, getting clear on how it is that I want to trade and not worrying about what some market wizard did.
I've written a short guide on how you can use the triple stock profit system. It's the secret weapon every investor needs right now to change your financial future. And you can get it for free by visiting triplestockprofits.com or in the links below. Also, if you want to join a community of traders just like you can get free access to the elite membership that has even more resources to help you trade faster and trade smarter. Well, Raghee, this has been really, really wonderful. I love talking to you, and it's been far too long. We're going to have to do this more often. In fact, she and I were bouncing around a few ideas for our next episode about maybe the fountain of youth and how trading is the fountain of youth. I can't wait to do that episode. Raghee, really, thank you so much for your time. It's really great to chat with you, and I hope the audience learned a lot. I certainly have, and really enjoy just having the conversation there.
No, my pleasure. And a lot of what we've talked about, I'm going to be discussing in a couple of weeks here for just the same type of approach, the patterns that I've discussed. I'm going to be doing a webinar. So if the listeners and the viewers want to check that out, they can do so over at simplertrading.com/patterns. And that's really what I want you guys to study. What are your current patterns that are serving you? What are the current patterns that aren't serving you? And you've really got to go all in on what your superpowers are. Not what you wish they are, but what they currently are, and really start to improve on that. Don't worry about what the holes in your game are. Find your superpower, go all in.
Wow, Raghee, this has been really wonderful. Thank you so much for your time. And certainly y'all go check out Raghee's webinar on at simplertrading.com/patterns, right? Mm-hmm. Perfect. And really, thank you so much again, Raghee.
Thank you.
Well, thank you guys for tuning into today's How to Trade Stocks and Options podcast. Make sure you like, subscribe, and enable notifications. That way you never miss. We have more tools, tips, and tricks to help you trade faster and trade smarter. And I'll see you on the next episode.